You're now on the road beyond. Glad to have you with us. I'm Todd Duplantis. We'll be taking you on a journey to places both far and near.
Fadden, we have a very fun guest for you tonight. She's someone who definitely has some very good energy. I think you're going to really enjoy it.
All right, that's right, Ike. We've got a great guest on the show tonight, and we're talking about witchcraft, modern witchcraft, and shamanism as well. I know you're very excited about that. Tonight's guest is practicing both in her daily life. Her name is Issamira.
Issamira Aronja, welcome to the show. I understand you are an international hairdresser and an artist of Mayan descent, and you were chosen to be a shamanic healer. I also understand your life was thrown into some chaos and insanity according to the end of the Mayan calendar in 2012. That should have well prepared you for 2020, I guess. This turn of events launched you onto a path of rebuilding your life and working your goals to become a practicing shaman. So let me ask you, for those of us who might not be familiar with it, what exactly is a modern witch or a shaman?
A healer, a modern day witch, is actually, we only take healing from universal truth. It comes from Mother Earth, from Mother Gaia. It comes from a guidance that I have. So I believe that shamans, or to be a healer, I didn't pick this journey. They picked you. You know what I mean? They choose you. So they basically come in and break you down. They broke me down in 2012, shedded me of everything, and brought me this new life. You have to go through a lot of darkness to find the light. And I think a lot of us know that. And so I started seeing dead people, and it's what I call a mass awakening. My awakening was extremely painful. But if we know anything about the modern day witches, these women were burned in the 1700s, 1692, because they had these powers of healing. And so the Mayans said that great change would come December 21st, 2012. They didn't say that the world would end. They said that a new energy would come in. And boy, has a new energy. It has really come in, shaken up the world, and changed everything. We're all looking for a new energy of healing, and that's where we come in, the new healers, what I call the indigo adults.
Issamira, I want to ask you, you mentioned the witches of the past from 1692, burned at the stake. How do you relate to, or do you relate to the witches of the past, and does that mean something to you today?
Absolutely. So when I was a very young kid at 6 or 7 years old, I went to so the teacher called my mom and said they needed to put me on medicine because I swore that I had been burned alive. And when I did my past life regression, it showed that I was burned at the stake. And so I believe that we lived many lives, but that is my belief. You know, so my logo is Witch 1700. Why is it Witch 1700? In honor of the women that were burned. These were women that were very advanced. They had healing powers. They used herbalism to heal us. And so I'm very, very, very honored to be able to say that I'm so connected to such amazing women that did live and that were burned at the stake. If we go back to my history of my past, my aunt, that's the Attorney General for a certain country, she was the one that released the information that my great-great-grandmother, Maria Garibaldi, was persecuted out of Italy and brought to Spain, where her daughter was burned at the stake, actually. And wow. So there is a big connection of these women that were healers.
So that's all.
I believe that we are chosen for this journey. That's why we're all coming out now and using different ways of healings. And I'm talking about crystals, different ways of moving energy. If you think about it, the shamans of many years used vibration and music to remove energies. And so now that we've entered into the age of Aquarius, which we actually left 200 years of Pisces, now we're in the age of Aquarius. We're starting to learn this natural universal healing.
So that's all interesting. For someone like me who's a little bit ignorant of this, can you give a very specific example of in your day-to-day life how you use witchcraft?
So I would actually change that a little bit on witchcraft, because then you go into different realms. A lot of people are very ignorant about witchetry, and they don't understand we're what they call the modern day curanderas. We're not really witches. We don't kill kids. We don't eat rats. We actually love Mother Nature. We're connected to Mother Universe. We heal people. Like I just had a client that left my studio. Literally, I just sat down and her partner has crossed over into another realm. As I'm sitting here taking care of her, and basically I looked over at this woman. I said, oh, so-and-so's here. This is what she wants me to say. And this woman looked at me. She goes, how do you do this every time? So I connect to other people for a reason of somebody's healing, or somebody has to heal something. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that we're connected to a fifth and sixth and seventh dimension. We just don't know how to access it.
Right.
And with people like me at Energy Studios, I will teach people how to access this healing.
Issamira, you mentioned that this chooses you. You don't choose to be a shaman or to connect with the other side. You also mentioned that you at one time you were seeing dead people and still connect with the other side. How did that first happen to you? And I guess the question that we've asked a lot of people who see ghosts, what do they look like? Are they full body figures? Or they're partial? Because we get different answers from everybody.
So I started my journey right before December 21st. I had started seeing people were arriving literally in front of my bed. And I was like, okay, what the heck's going on? And I was a Houston socialite. This was not even, I've always been indigenous, but half indigenous, but I didn't know that I had this ability. You have to understand, as a young child, they put me on Ritalin, all kinds of stuff. So I kind of blocked that energy. And so I woke up one morning and I had my grandfather sitting there. And I'm sitting there going, oh, Jesus, what is this about? And so at first, I didn't want to connect to this energy. I thought I was losing my mind. So I was going from doctors to doctors to doctors to doctors as my world was falling apart. My business was falling apart. My marriage was falling apart. My company was falling apart, and it was shedding me of everything. Why it was shedding me of everything? Because I needed to connect with myself to the universal truth to be able to see these people. And so first of all, what I did in that journey, in that beginning of that journey, I was using as much alcohol and as many drugs I could put in my body so I didn't connect, because I didn't want to feel. Right. I didn't want to see these things. Are you kidding? I was a socialite. I went shopping for Louis Vuittons. I didn't talk to dead people. And on one of these, I remember after 3 or 4 years of me abusing my body and doing drugs and everything, I got on my knees. And when I spoke to Mother Earth, my grandfather, it was not like a burning bush, but he showed up and I heard him say, and how he showed up was almost very transparent and very angelic and very gentle. And he looked at me and he said, you can't do this. You have another journey. And so when I was able to connect to that other dimension, it was able to move me through my sobriety. That doesn't mean it's not perfect, but I'm able to connect, which is really interesting. Shamans have a lot of difficulty with alcohol and drugs. My shaman, my educator, that's my shaman's got 35 years sober. And so from then on, I started clearing and I started learning, and they picked me. Who are they? I always laugh when people ask me, who are they, when I connect. I don't know if they're Martians. I don't know if they're angels, but I know they're amazing people that talk to me. And it's not like it's schizophrenic voice that you hear. They tell me what's happening. Like I can actually connect with dead people because I read energy. I can actually move and shift energy of healing. I can move because what happens is, as healers and as human beings, we absorb so much pain that we block ourselves. And that's where the chakras come in. And we don't know how to move that. When we start moving that energy, amazing things start happening. I just have to learn. And one of the things that's super important is that we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take this in a slightly different direction. And again, this is sort of me playing the ignorant person.
It's okay.
Do people like you, do you cast spells? Is that part of what you do? What is that like?
So we only work with universal truth. There is different ways. I've played with both. I've played with dark energy and light energy. And when I went into Santeria at a very young age, within a year, I ended up in jail, in prison. Oh, wow. I got way out of whack. Because if you connect with a dark energy, you're going to create darkness. Okay? Yeah. And so...
well, you hear about that. You hear about that a lot when people use Ouija boards. And
Ouija boards
they bring
time out on that.
Things that you don't want to deal with into your house. I mean, you hear that happening all the time.
So you have to be really careful to connect to whatever realms you connect. You don't want to connect to the dark realm. The minute you connect to the dark realm, sometimes it'll bring enlightened stuff to darken you. So you have to be really careful. We are living in the times we're living in is a very thin veil. They are here. Spiritual energies here. They've been here. We just never been able to connect. And so we are going to carry some love spells at the energy studio reopening. We're going to carry healing spells and love spells only on universal truth. Everything will be connected to love and kindness. There's never any darkness. I do have crazy people that have called me and said, can you put a spell on my boyfriend? This is not what universal healing is about at all.
Right. Issamira, I know you and I have talked over the past couple of years, and I know at the beginning of last year, you were telling me, and I'll remember this very well, you were like, we're going into a time where everything's going to be exposed, everything's going to change, our life is going to change more than you ever would know it would be. And look what happened over the last year. This was before the pandemic, folks. We had this conversation and things changed dramatically. But you also, over the past month or so, you say we're into a different transition time where things are going to look more positive for us. Maybe you can talk about that a bit.
So actually, and I've been talking about this, so we did not start our new year until March 20th, the equinox. So the Mayans were the first people that created, so they created the number 0 and they had the first calendar. And they actually built these pyramids without a wheel because this was before Christ. And so all this stuff that's happening, if you go back to my tarot page, I actually predicted the pandemic before it started. Why we're having all this stuff? Because we're leaving 200 years of water and we're going into air. And what that means is time is going faster. Things are going faster. The greatest truth, some of the biggest pains that are having to be exposed is to expose the darkness to find the light. I truly believe that 2021, we will actually have connection with UFOs, which they're here already, but it's just not exposed yet. But it will be exposed. We're going to have great miracles happen. There is great things that happen through darkness, and we all know that. There has to be things that are painful for them to rise.
Right.
That's very common.
Let me ask you something. You mentioned your background as Mayan before. Is there anything genetic in being, do you think that prepares you in any way to be on this sort of path, or is it?
So I truly believe, I used to be very ashamed of being indigenous because it was kind of looked down upon in the 80s or 90s. If you were of Hispanic descent, a lot of people tried to cover it up or were not proud of it. And now as I'm older, I've been able to embrace my indigenous culture. And I do believe that God has prepared me, or Mother Earth or the universe, whatever the hell people believe in, because I believe that everything is connected, the stars, the moon, and I believe that they prepared me for this new awakening. The Mayans said that something great would happen, and it's happening. The great fall of 2020 was for everything to be exposed, and it's still coming out for great light. What we're going to see, so I don't know if any people, especially right now in the era that we're in, the last couple of weeks have been painful. Our body aches, exhausted. Nobody's talking about the solar flares. That causes our body pain. People are trying to adjust. The whatever's happening, they're not talking about all the stuff that's happening in the universe with the light and the moon and the fact that the sun is way closer to us than ever. All this stuff affects human nature. We're connected to Mother Earth in ways that people were so ignorant about, on top of the fact that people have always covered all this with religion. So for example, Notre Dame was ordered to be built in the 1100. It was not built till the 1300. It was built on a Roman temple dedicated to Jupiter. But the Catholic Church is against astronomy. And that's always been before the religion.
Right.
So I believe in universal truth. That's what I hang on to. And I hang on to the universal truth because it's teaching me that we can heal that way.
Right.
Pure love and kindness really goes a long way.
Issamira, I know you're going to be focusing on a lot of these things with a new shop that you're opening. Where can people find you on Facebook? I know you have a tarot card reading business as well. Where can they find you? So
they can find me on Issamira Tarot, or they can find me Houston Healing spirit, and energy soul. The studio is going to be called the House of Magic. And we're going to cater from everything from smudge sticks to crystals to chakra alignment to divine feminine sexual energy. Why divine feminine sexual energy? Because this is for both men and women. A lot of us have been assaulted, raped, disrespected, and we carry that and it blocks us. So we're going to teach people that it's okay to love yourself, to respect yourself. It's okay to expose who you really are.
Issamira, thanks for enlightening us and bringing us a little bit of truth on the show this evening, I should say. And we look forward to seeing you with your business. Folks, if you want to find Issamira, look for her on Facebook. We'll have her links in the social media post for this show. Thank you for joining us, Issamira.
Thank you.
All right, now it's time for our new segment. Ike, here's a look at some of the weird, tantalizing, and just plain bizarre stories posted from our partners in the Full Spectrum Project. I'm kind of excited about this next story because I believe you sent this over to me a couple of days ago, and it involves really kind of what Issa was talking about, UFOs about to be exposed.
Yeah, and I've got to say, I mean, while I would love to see that be the case, I got to say I'm a little cynical at this point because I think we're going through year 30 of everything almost being exposed. And do you remember that whole disclosure project?
I do remember something along those lines. Yeah. This one gains a little bit more ground because they're saying that because of that order that Trump signed back last year, the COVID relief bill, there was something attached to it that said that there has to be a disclosure within 6 months. Well, guess what? That's coming up in June.
Well, would you care to make a bet on exactly what's going to show up?
I'm thinking a bunch of documents with a lot of things blacked out.
Well, good. We need a few more blacked out documents.
Yeah, with a lot of things scratched out, confidential, non-disclosed. But, it's getting some weight here. This article that you had sent me was pulled up. It's from Insider Paper, and it was published on zerohedge.com. And it talks about Trump's former national intelligence director. He spoke with Fox News, and he made some revelations that sparked excitement about an upcoming report detailing what the U.S. government had observed. Well, you remember those Tic Tac UFOs? He says, yeah, they were there. And yeah, we're looking at them. And they're doing things that nothing on Earth has been able to do. And this was Radcliffe is his name. And it was also confirmed the other day by Marco Rubio.
Yeah, and that is, I've got to say, that is a little bit interesting in the sense that, these are fairly high-level people.
Yeah.
And although on the other hand, I think Marco Rubio's been sort of on the UFO thing for a number of years, and he's been fairly vocal about it as one of the few people in Congress who've had anything to say on the topic.
Well, Marco Rubio was caught up by TMZ. He was in the airport yesterday, as a matter of fact, and they asked him about UFOs. And he said, quote, there's stuff flying over military installations and nobody knows what it is and it isn't ours. He then went on to say, it's common sense, right? Unquote. He then goes on to say there's stuff flying over the top of our military installations. So they don't know who's flying it. They don't even know who it is. So that's a problem. We need to find out if we can. So there's stuff out there. I've been saying it for years that's in the skies that no one can seem to pinpoint what it is, and people are catching it on video now.
Well, I'll be happy to be proven wrong and find out that there's some serious disclusure coming up. And but that's these sorts of tales have been going on certainly in the U.S. at least since the 40s. Overflights of the nuclear weapons facilities and so forth. And in a lot of ways, I was reading another book a while back that was talking about this sort of thing is actually fairly common in all of human history, in that there typically are these stories about things that are just seemingly beyond our ability to understand. Right. And in the olden days, they were considered to be blimps and airships from some foreign country, and then they became the Foo Fighters that were maybe Nazi super weapons of some sort. And it's always this thing that's just beyond our current technology.
And it's going to be that way. I mean, this Tic Tac video is a groundbreaker. If you haven't seen it, Google it, folks. The Tic Tac UFO video shot a few years ago, and the government has confirmed that, they have no idea what it is. And it's traveling at incredible speeds, and it's making sharp turns. Nothing on this earth can handle it. Let's go on to another crazy ass story involving a Santiago flight 513. Now, get this, Ike. This flight took off back in, the 1950s. It was an airliner filled with 92 people and a crew of 4 and a pilot. Well, the plane just disappeared. It took off from Germany, supposed to land in Santiago. Well, get this, 1989, it makes a landing in 1989, and on board, 92 skeletons, and the whole crew are skeletons as too.
Yeah, Todd, I tried to look into this after you sent me the link, and I mean, as far as I could tell, I don't know about this one.
It's a little sketchy, but our friends at the Weekly World News tabloid originally posted this story in their 1989 edition when this the greatest thing about it was they said the plane didn't appear on radar. It just started circling the airport, then it landed. They couldn't contact it through the radio. Then they get on board, the plane's still idling, you got a bunch of skeletons on it.
I've got to say, doesn't that sound like an episode of The Twilight Zone that we saw back when we were kids, maybe?
It does sound like that. This is from mysteriesunsolved.com. You can look up the article. But yeah, there you go. That's got to be a bizarre story. Some people are saying it's just a hoax. Well, it's one hell of a hoax if you plan that one.
Yeah, well, or it could fall under the, as with the UFOs, that the government just has no idea what's going on. And I've got to say, after 2020, that would not surprise me.
That wouldn't surprise any of us if any of them have no idea what's going on. Well, Ike, it's about time to wrap up this episode here. Make sure you check out our YouTube channel, The Road Beyond Network. You can watch this show and all others in our network, including ones from our partners in the Full Spectrum Project.
I'll see you next time. My name is Ike McFadden.
And I'm Todd Duplantis. You've been on The Road Beyond. We'll see you again next time.